In the US, there's a quote that every coach uses, and it's like the most important point is the next point, right? So we're mindless. We're focusing on that last point and how lucky the other team got, or how you just barely missed it, or how you feel like you're not getting set enough and it sucks, or maybe you're focused on the future. Oh, if I make another error, I'm going to be out. Last time the coach subbed me after we lost, I'm probably going to get subbed again. And we only have a finite amount of energy, right, that we can focus. And so if we're like here in the past and here in the future, we're losing this much that could have been here in the present.
Hello and welcome. This is Mind Rules Podcast, a program on psychological aspects of sport, physical activity, and optimal functioning. My name is Grzegorz Więcław, and by craft and training, I am a sport psychologist. In this podcast, I aim to discover divergent pathways to mastery in sport and personal development. Together with my guests, I am looking for ways to enhance performance, maintain mental and physical well-being, and create a life worth living. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome. This is the Mind Rules Podcast, episode number 58. It might be strange for some of you to hear me speaking English on this podcast, as it is only the second episode ever recorded and published in this language. In case you're curious and wondering, the first one in English was produced with my dear friend and colleague Pete Schneider when I did my FEBSAC-sponsored internship at FC Augsburg Academy in November 2019. So if you don't speak Polish, this is the only other episode so far you could attend to in my program, and that would be episode number 23. Thinking about it now, I must admit it is a shame that I don't do English episodes more often, because I actually really enjoyed recording both of them, and I believe bringing more diversity should only be valuable to my regular listeners, and hopefully will also expand my audience. So hopefully this language trend will change soon, as I plan to grow the library for English-speaking listeners, and also bring in some guests that I simply can't interview in Polish. This time, I also made up for some mistakes that I believe I made when publishing episode 23, featuring the interview with Pete. For example, I recorded the intro and outro in English, so people listening can understand the episode all the way through and don't get confused hearing me speaking Polish in the beginning. So I hope that this will make listening smooth and enjoyable for all, and not only those privileged Polish speakers. Also, the show notes are available all in English, in case anyone wants to follow up on the matters we touched upon today with Dusty. Yeah, Dusty. So now it's the time to introduce my guest, Dustin Watten, American pro volleyball player who spent last 2 seasons playing in the Polish league in a local club of GKS Katowice in the south of Poland. Dustin plays libero, and in my mind, what makes him so special is the amount of time, energy, and effort he devotes to his inner work. It is exemplary how he had built himself from within and continues to cultivate a strong mindset. As you will soon discover in this conversation, Dustin has been inspired by many wise people, including the Stoics, such as Marcus Aurelius, existential psychologists like Viktor Frankl, and George Mumford, the mindfulness teacher associated with Coach Phil Jackson and the famous basketball team of Chicago Bulls in the 90s. Through implementing simple daily strategies and routines, Dustin has organized and aligned his inner life, which not only made him a better volleyball player, but also a better person. At the moment of publishing this episode, Dustin is still pursuing his very best and is ready to work as hard as he can to make it to the USA Olympic team for Tokio this year. It was a true pleasure to connect with Dustin and casually chat about his inner world and views about the world around him. I hope you will enjoy this conversation as much as I did, because it is special. Without any further delays, let's jump right into this conversation as it flows.
All right. Well, first off, I apologize because you have been very, very patient with me, and I appreciate you being so patient. And yeah, excited to have this conversation.
This is what I do for a living. Be patient.
Be patient with Americans.
Quite honestly, yeah, man. So you're back home, or?
I wouldn't say. I mean, I guess kind of home, because this is where my girlfriend lives. I met my girlfriend last year, and she is now working as a nurse in Kentucky, and so that's where I am now. I'll be here for a couple weeks. You might be one of the only people to know this, but I was actually cut from the national team last year, and recently I was asked to come back to the national team. So the plan was for us to be together this year in in Kentucky. But now I'll go back to the national team. And so I'm here for, I'll be here for 2 weeks. I go to the national team, we'll train for a month, and then we'll go to Italy for a month, and then another 2 weeks training before the Olympics. And maybe I go, maybe I don't, but yeah, it's a lot of things have happened in the last, I would say, 3 weeks. And so now I'm just like trying to pivot, because I had a lot of plans actually for this summer, assuming I wasn't going to be at the national team. And pretty much everything is like, well, I have to cancel every freaking plan I had.
Knowing you from the social media, you're pretty good at pivoting, man. This is your bread and butter, isn't it?
I'm really trying to catch myself like complaining or like being like, oh my gosh, like what am I going to do? Because it's like, this is the best thing ever to happen, like to me or to anyone, right? To be called to the national team. But now just trying to be very, very, very present with her. And so it's kind of easy actually, because she's an RN. She works as a nurse. And so a lot of time she is either at work or at sleep. So like right now she's actually asleep. So she'll be sleeping for the next like 5 hours. And so that's the plan. Just like when she's asleep, I have a lot of work to do. And then when she's awake, just be as present as possible with her.
Well, hopefully it's going to be an enjoyable conversation. I mean, I so much appreciate that we finally meet. And I have been after you for a couple of months. Persistent, patient, even sometimes feeling like a bully. But at the end of the day, we meet. And I'm so curious about the conversation we're gonna have, because you are such a legend in my mind in terms of bringing the right mindset into the world of pro sports.
Thank you.
And I am just so interested in hearing out your journey, and how have you built yourself the way you are now?
Yeah, I would actually like to really post this on IG Live, if that's okay with you, get people interested about it, because I think there's going to be a lot of great questions, so that's fine.
Absolutely.
That's why I wanted to go early, because I know I'll enjoy this conversation. It's just like sitting down and doing it, because I just have like so many things I want to do, so many things I need to do, and so many things that I also should probably be doing, but this is like something I need to do. And actually, like, kind of on top of this, it's like my big thing for this summer is like having like a Sabbath. I've been reading this book about religion, and just talking about the importance of having Sunday just to rest, because I don't have any rest days. Like every single day I'm like doing something, and more or less every day, every minute I'm like working on something. And so I need to get better at resting, because in a weird way, it's like, I know I should be doing things and I want to provide for myself, for my girlfriend, but I also know that there needs to be rest. And that's why people work. They want to work so they can eventually rest. I have the opportunity to do that now when I'm young. And so, long story short, I'm excited to chat with you.
Of course. I mean, you've had a rough and interesting journey so far as a pro volleyball player. You have traveled around the world pretty much. This season you played in Polish league. I was very hopeful to catch you here in Katowice. It didn't happen, but I'm glad we are connecting over the internet. This is one of the great things about having the pandemic in the modern days, that we actually can stay socially connected and only need to keep physical distance. So so glad to have you on. Can you talk a little bit about how you've ended up in the place where you're at now?
It's a great question. I would say a lot of failure, a lot of great mentors, a lot of stubbornness, and some great parents. And all those things have just kind of pushed and pulled me, giving me the courage to keep on failing. And here I am. Also, I would say a lot of insecurity. I think I speak about this sometimes, maybe not enough, but when I was in high school, I really didn't have any friends. And so I think a lot of what still drives my subconscious, and even now, is like insecurity to fit in. And like, I've never given up on being a volleyball player, is because I was too insecure to not have that label as like a professional athlete. And so I don't recommend this for people, but like, I just never quit, because I just always wanted to be known as like professional athlete, or like Dustin Watten, professional athlete. And so I would also say a lot of insecurity has also pushed me to get to where I am today.
Well, volleyball is not one of the sports in the US. As you might have noticed, I studied in Vancouver. So I know there are 4 main sports in America, and volleyball isn't one of them.
That's true.
No professional league so far. So it's also a tough choice of a sport to make it as a pro athlete in a country where you actually don't have a league of a magnitude of the NBA or the NHL.
You know, I think it's good and bad, because the characters we get in America for volleyball are people that just love the sport, rather than, and I don't see it so much in Poland, but in Brazil, a lot of people play the sport because they know what's possible. They know girls will be much more attracted to them. They know they can make a lot of money. They know they'll be on TV. They know that they'll be stars. They know that they could be celebrities. In America, we don't have this problem. You go to a bar, you're like, oh, I play volleyball. They're like, what? In Brazil, it's like, I have a friend, a Brazilian friend. He actually came to America, and he played on like Sada Cruzeiro's like youth team, like the biggest team in Brazil. And we were talking about how being a volleyball player in Brazil is so great. And he was joking. He's like, if you go to a disco, you just walk up to a girl and you can say anything. But if they know you're a volleyball player, they tell them you're a volleyball player, like, it's like that. And so he was joking. He's like, I can go up to a girl and say, I like pizza and soda. And they're like, ooh, let's dance. And he's like, but I'm a volleyball player. And I'm like, ooh, let's dance. And so I think it's a good thing in a sense, because for volleyball, we get people that are so intrinsically motivated. Right.
All right.
And people that are able to get 2, 3, 4 years overseas, like, they're good to go for the end roll. You never hear about Americans like, and I'm not going to put any Polish names out there, but you never hear about drama. Oh, this player is this and that, or he doesn't want to play, or he's causing trouble. You never hear this about Americans, because it's like, we like just are just a bunch of dorks, or a bunch of like scrawny tall kids that have grown up, and now we're like really great athletes, but we still have that mentality of just like, we're not so big, like not a big deal, but we just play it because we love it. And also, because we don't have a league, it's also our benefit, I believe, because we go overseas, we live in Poland, we live in Russia, we live in Italy, wherever it may be, without friends, without family, and we get hardened or players quit. And maybe it's better that those players quit because they weren't tough enough to deal with it. And when it gets tough in a tournament, in the Olympics, they're going to bail. And so the guys that play for us, for our national team, are pretty tough because they live overseas. They have to sacrifice family, they sacrifice friends, and they do this because of the national team, right?
That's very interesting, yeah.
Because if you aren't playing for the national team, if you're not playing for the national team, most guys will quit. You could look at Murphy Troy as an example. He could have kept on playing for the national team, but he can make more money doing what he does now, and he can be with his wife and his family, and that's what he decided, right? Nothing against him. If anything, it's like big respect that he could do that in his peak, right? In his absolute peak, he quit volleyball because a lot of players can actually make more money working in the U.S., maybe even as a coach. You can probably make more money in the U.S. You can make more money in the U.S. working as a coach than maybe as a player overseas. And so when you play overseas, you are doing a lot of it for the national team. And it's like this like deep commitment, right? Where you go overseas and you struggle, you grow, and then you come back to the national team and you're like, oh, we're back. Like, let's freaking do this. Like, the boys are back, you know? Like, let's crush it. I know Canada is kind of the same thing. In Poland, it's not so much. It's just like, oh, like some guys play together. It's like most of the guys play in Poland. It's like, oh, yeah, whatever. You know, we're back. Like, yeah. But when you go back to the U.S., it's like, oh, we're freaking back. And everyone's like so dialed in. Because you look at the national team, we don't really have the best players. Maybe like at the very top, like our starting team is the best, but like our second team, if you can compare it to Poland, like Poland's like fourth team probably beats us.
Well,
but we have this character, we have this resilient, we have this grittiness, and I think it's because we live overseas. It's because America, it's not that big of a sport, and it's because we're not celebrities. Also in Poland too, you know, maybe I'm making the same amount of some guy in Poland, but because they live in Poland, that's actually like 4 times the amount of in regards to the quality of life, right? Like in Poland, like maybe I pay I have like a really nice house and I'm paying a lot, probably too much. I'm paying like $600 for the house, right? In America, I'm looking at houses right now. Like I can't really find an apartment under $2,500.
There you go.
And so also, you know, your status, you're right. Your status is really elevated in Poland because how much money you make, you're on TV all the time. In America, I go back to America, nobody knows who I am. I can go to a volleyball tournament for youth players. I don't think anyone will know who I am. But if Kurik goes out, you know, everyone's taking photos. It's a big deal.
You're joking,
right?
Huh?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I think it's actually
here comes the first thing that this is the first interesting thing that comes up here in terms of, you know, coping with being a pro player, coming from the US, adapting to the life overseas. And I am wondering if you have any tips and tricks that you have come up with over the past years when you played in France, Brazil, Finland, Poland, which helped you adjust to the local culture and find your very best on the volleyball court.
Yeah, I mean, how much time we got? I think the big thing is just meditating, having that space to not be so anxious and just listen and just be there, not knowing that you probably can't talk, you probably can't say something, you're probably not knowing what's going on, but just to be there and to be in silence and to find solace in that silence. I think it's really hard for Americans to do in general. I'd probably argue for most people. But say, for example, in overseas, I just sit in silence, right? I just sit in silence and I just observe. And I can really pick up, I think, on energies now, on body language. I understand, like, if someone says something, but I look at their body language and I'm like, that's not what they really feel, you know? And so I think it's really important to not only to meditate, but also and observing your thoughts in meditation, but also to materialize those thoughts by writing them and journaling, because you're just going to be by yourself a lot. And it can be a curse by having the perception is I'm lonely, or it can be a blessing where it's like, I'm alone. I have the time to do the inner work on myself. It's almost like a bear. Like I joke when I go overseas, it's hibernation time. Time to hibernate, time to grow, time to read, time to meditate, time to sleep more. If I'm in California, I'm always doing something, right? I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm like pulled here. I'm pulled there. Let's go this. Let's go this. I haven't seen this person. I'm always pulled. I'm not able to act from like this center of stillness. And so
right.
A lot of Americans actually have a really hard time. I talk a lot with this young player who's in Italy right now. And I think he's had really hard time. And it's just helping him put a different lens on, where it's like, I'm missing this, I'm missing that, I'm missing this, I'm missing that, I'm missing this. And it's like, yeah, but you're also gaining. Like, you're learning what it means to be alone. You're learning how to interact without a girlfriend, without friends, without family. Like, you're doing this by yourself, and you don't feel it right now, but you're going to look back and be like, oh, or you're going to go back to California and people are going to be like, wow, you've grown. You're like, really? Because, we don't really notice that. Like, day by day, we don't notice our growth so much. But say for me, my first year in Radom, I was so nervous and so insecure. I was like, man, imposter syndrome. Like, I'm not going to make it in this league. I'm not good enough. I had like one lucky like performance in World League. I've played in France 2 years, and now I'm in Poland. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be awful. But that also pushed me to take care of those things within my control. So I started meditating every day, 3 sessions of 20 minutes. And I didn't really notice much. But when I got back to America, people like friends I look up to, like mentors, started coming out to me like, my life is like so tough, or like, I feel like I'm failing as a father. My buddy's like, I feel like I don't have any true friends. I'm like, why are you telling me this? I'm like, but like, you just grow so much when you're alone. And especially with regards to meditation, you put out a different vibe and energy. And kind of what we know now with science is we all are energy, whether we can see it, feel it or not. Subconsciously we are, or at least we're able to perceive it.
So those two practices that you just mentioned, meditation and journaling, are the cornerstones of the inner work of yours.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's just checking in with yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much that we suppress and repress, and it's important rather to hide from them or to escape them. In the past, I've escaped with partying, with girls, with drinking, with destructive behavior, because I don't want to feel these emotions. It's just important that we feel and we observe them. And when we sit and meditate, we can observe it. And even when we meditate, it's not like the goal of meditation is not have any thoughts. It's like, just observe those thoughts. Like, what can we learn from them?
That's right.
If there's nothing we can learn from them, let's observe them until they pass, because all things pass. So just sitting, the longer we can sit, the better. And then journaling too, where it's like, when we're journaling, we're like straight up like wizards. Like, we're materializing our thoughts. And then maybe eventually those words will materialize in real life. Like, I want to go play in Russia. It's like, all right, you write those things out. Now you're going to start acting like a player that is good enough to play in Russia. And then maybe one day you find yourself in Russia and you're like, wow, I was a wizard. Like, those thoughts turned into papers, turned into my actual life. And it's also important too, I think, just to write down, like, am I scared about this? Am I nervous about that? And just be clear of it and see it and be like, okay, like, I'm good with this. Like, now I can move forward, rather than just like feeling it, but always like pushing it away, feeling it and running away, feeling it and going over here. And so if you don't feel comfortable speaking about it with a significant other, a family member, or a friend, journaling is your friend.
Mindfulness-based practices, like you described them, in the form of meditation or journaling or just some other kind of inner work, are very, very popular these days. Ever since Phil Jackson's Chicago Bulls and George Mumford, that was helping him to teach those basketball players to practice mindfulness on and off the court. But still, I have a feeling as a sports psych that a lot of athletes, coaches, and even fans look at those practice, with a frown and find them a little bit esoteric. How are you perceived by your environment? What kind of feedback your environment gives you when they see you meditating or journaling or just doing your own version of inner work?
It just depends where I am, right? Poland's catching up. In America, specifically with our national team, like something we've been doing maybe like for 5 years now. And so, I mean, the coach will run it. The coach, John Spraw, kudos to him. He has a great intention with the work that also needs to be done outside of training. So running us through visualization, running us through meditation. So I'm meditating with the team, like it's nothing new, right? Even with my roommate, I usually roommate with Max, and Max also meditates. And so it just depends, like the environment that you're in, right? In Poland, I think people are catching up to it slowly. Yannick Nowakowski, I know he meditates. I don't know, Yannick Firle, I'm sure he does something. But it's just catching up. And I think it's hard because you don't feel it, right? If you pass balls every day, you're going to like notice like, oh, I physically see like I'm getting better. I feel a touch. I'm getting better. If you work out every day, you're like, I'm like getting stronger. I'm putting more weights on. When you meditate, you can't really like measure that, right? It's only, I feel, when you stop meditating and then it's like, say you're driving and like someone stops and you're like, you honk and you're like, whoa, why did I honk, right? You're like, where did that come from? This has happened a couple times. Like actually when I travel with the national team, it's like, I'm like kind of like a little insecure, right? To meditate like in the hotel room with my roommate. It's like just kind of odd. And so that's like 3, 4, maybe 5 weeks not meditating. It's a long time, right? And then I'll go back to America after that tournament and I'll just catch myself like reacting, right? Reacting, not in a very high version, getting grumpy, getting frustrated. And I'm like, oh man, I need to meditate.
Yeah, because what meditation does to us is we are widening the space between the stimulus and response. So there is more room for making a choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great little Frankl quote right there.
Yeah,
exactly. And how how much more lovely would the world be if people had more space? Because in that space, we have time to respond closer to our highest version. Maybe not everyone is Gandhi, or Krishna consciousness, but pretty much from my experience, everyone wants to be loved and everyone wants to love. So that's at the highest version, or maybe the deepest need, right? To love. So if people have that space, they're going to choose love. They're going to choose understanding. They're going to choose compassion. But too often, we're not there. We're just reacting. And we're reacting out of pain, right? When you see someone yelling at someone on the street or someone honking, that person isn't okay. A healthy minded person is not doing that. And so it's like, there's a great quote. I think it might be Marcus Aurelius. I could be wrong, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, there's 2 ways to respond in life. One, say, for example, it's like someone does something that like doesn't align with you, and you're like, what is this person doing, right? So one, say this person does something, and you're like, what are you doing? But you can find yourself in that person. So I like this thought of like the analogy of like at a bar, right? Someone bumps into you and like spills a drink on you, and you're like, hey bro, like, come on, what are you doing? But with that space, you're like, I've done that before, and I'm going to forgive him because I'm forgiving myself, right? Maybe someone does something like ridiculous, like absolutely out of control. It's like, I would never do that. And so now the option is also forgiveness. It's like, wow, I would never do that. That person's probably in a lot of pain, or that person's been dealing with a lot of pain that he has to act like that. Of course, there's times where we're not necessarily going to forgive. We have to take action or whatever we call the cost. But overall, we need to forgive. And so there's two ways of finding forgiveness in a tough situation. But usually those people that are committing crimes, people that are being loud, aggressive, those people are just in like deeper pain than we could ever acknowledge.
Don't you think this is advantageous in the world of sports, which is a brutal environment very often, tough competition, people that you need to show your dominance over, but in a competitive sporting way, and this acting out of your pain and hurt self can bring better sport performance in some way and in some instances. It's a question, actually.
if you think about athletes, there's some athletes that are like, they're gonna show you and then like tell you, right? Like, oh, I'm so good. But those people, it's like usually this, we say like feast or famine, right? But when things are going bad, they don't know how to react. And so when I think of a competitor, I think of like Vosley, right? He's just like, he gets fired up, but he's just like cool and composed. And like, he's going to go back and rip his serve no matter what. Even if you miss 5 in a row, he's going to go back and rip his serve because he has that confidence, right? I feel like, and I could be wrong, but he has like a certain amount of like confidence and stillness and calm when things aren't going well. And I think a lot of good athletes don't have that. Some great athletes have that, but a lot of like good athletes have to be playing good to play good, if that makes sense. Like they can't start off the game with 5 hitting errors and not find themselves on the bench. So I think that's where the mindful athlete comes in.
I was just going to say, how does mindfulness help you deal with those mistakes, big and small?
Yeah. I mean, in the US, there's a quote that every coach uses, and it's like, the most important point is the next point, right? So we're mindless. We're focusing on that last point and how lucky the other team got, or how you just barely missed it, or how you feel like you're not getting set enough and it sucks, or maybe you're focused on the future. Oh, if I make another error, I'm going to be out. Last time the coach subbed me after we lost, I'm probably going to get subbed again. And we only have a finite amount of energy, right, that we can focus. And so if we're like here in the past and here in the future, we're losing this much that could have been here in the present, right? And so I've always heard this quote, and it's like, the most important ball is the next ball. And it's like, okay, that's great, but what does that mean? And for me, I believe now with what I know is that's where mindfulness comes in. It's like return to the breath, as Mumford says, awareness of the breath, awareness of the sensations. And then if you're asking yourself a question or we're thinking, it's like, what do I need to do to help my team get this next point? What do I need to do in my preparation? Rather than like, oh, that sucked. Or like, oh, we're going to lose again. It's like, no, like we're getting lost now. We're in the future. We're in the past. Like these things don't help us. How present can we be time and time again? Present as possible. Present as possible. Because say, like, for example, we'll say like my skill level is like a 90 out of 100. Like if I'm 100% present, I'm like a 90, right? But if I'm like 80% present, well, now I'm like at 88, 86, 84. If I'm like 20% present, I'm like at a 40, you know? A player in Division I that is 100% focused is better than me. So just how can I come back to the present moment time and time again with as much confidence, clarity, and focus as possible?
Yeah. What this reminds me of is Michael Phelps' strategy. He talks about in his autobiography, and he calls it win. What's important now? When his thoughts go out galloping, he just reminds himself what's important now and goes back to the present moment, exactly what you just described.
I actually I did another interview before this, and we were talking about this kind of mantra I used a lot in my time in Berlin. When I wasn't playing, I was on the bench, and I was really frustrated and resentful that I was on the bench. And so my mantra was, what does the highest version of myself look like at this exact moment?
Nice.
So his is a little better formatted, but I think it's just like calling yourself out. It's like, well, are you gonna like own up to your highest self, or are you just gonna like be like the victim, search for pity? And it's like, no, I want to be what my highest version looks like. And so it's just like a call to action almost.
The first time I heard about you, Dustin, was because of the video you've made when you played in Berlin.
Yeah.
And I wrote that on Instagram, and I was just looking for some inspiration for the youth athletes to show them how important are daily routines and how much you can achieve when you actually discipline yourself and commit to some small things. And then I found your video that you prepared, which is wonderful. I think it was back in 2018 or something like that.
Yep, that's right. Maybe the spring of 2019.
Yeah, and I will link this video to the show notes, because you've done it in such a beautiful way, showing how your day looks like, and how you can integrate daily routines, which are very small sometimes, and how they can help you to win your day. And ever since, you've been using this phrase, how to win your day and how to make your day best day ever, which again ties into the idea of living in the present moment. Can you talk a little bit about how this became the building block of your mindset?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it had to do with a season 3 years before that, when I was in Nancy. It was like the fall after I finally was able to travel with Team USA. And I played really well with Team USA, probably the best I've ever played. And I was feeling really good, like big star USA coming to Nancy. And this team I knew was going to be bad, but we were just really bad. And nothing was going well. The team was fighting. The coach was a jerk. Weather sucked. My girlfriend and I broke up. And yeah, nothing good was going. And I was just so frustrated. And I wanted to be a victim and tell people how bad it was and how unfair it was, and this and that. This is awful. This is crap. And it wasn't helping me, right? I was just playing in my own shit. Like, it wasn't good. And so I remember calling my agent. I was just like, get me out of here. Like, is there anywhere I can go? I'm done with this. I want to go back to the States. Like, if you don't find me a team, I don't care. I'm leaving. And he was like, all right, easy. And then the next day I went to a cafe and I had this book, Marcus Aurelius Meditations. I started reading it and I was just like, I was like, what's happening outside of me is not necessarily my reality. My perception of these things are my reality, right? The circumstances I'm in, the reactions and responses of people around me, their efforts, their actions, like it's theirs. It's not mine. How I perceive their actions, how I perceive my situation is mine. So it's almost like prescription glasses. It's like, I'm a victim. I want pity. This sucks. This is okay. I can grow. There's so much I can grow, etc. And so it's like, which perception do you want to choose? You know? And so after that, I was like, no, I'm not leaving. I'm like, I'm not a quitter. I've never been a quitter. And I stayed. And at that time I was using this list and I just wasn't really doing a good job. Like, so it's like automatically it's like, well, I wasn't showing up to my highest version. And so for like the next 3 weeks, I was like, I'm going to do 100% of the things on the list. And I did it. And everything changed. And every day started becoming the best day ever. The coach didn't change. The team didn't change. The players didn't change. The weather didn't change. My girlfriend and I were still broken up. But I started to take responsibility for my life. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because then the year after that, I got to Poland and be in a really great environment. And I had that foundation down of just taking responsibility for each day and my growth. The big thing was just the list, right? So I had this list, and it's just like, I created this list in Finland my second year when it was looking like I wasn't going to get a contract. And I was like, well, I need to be a little more intentional of how I'm spending my time. Just playing video games, drinking and partying and working hard. Like, I did work hard. I just wasn't good enough. And so throughout the years, that list from 4 things has expanded to maybe about 24 things. And it's just something as like supplements I should be taking, meditation, my mind, doing a little reading, doing a little writing, getting extra reps, watching video, all things that I've done. And I know by spending energy and time doing these things, it will contribute to me becoming a better volleyball player, a better friend, a better boyfriend, someone that's more compassionate, someone that listens more, someone that's able to forgive more often than none. And so it's just more or less a compass that I can hold up and just continue walking the path.
All right. Do you still have a list, or is it just so automated that you don't need a list anymore?
You know what? I need to get back on it. I just got to Kentucky, and I need to print one out. I was actually talking to my girlfriend about it today. Now it's a little more difficult because it's like kind of running a business now and doing a lot with social media. But there's just huge blocks of time where I just have to like get tunnel vision. Whereas before it was like I had like 4 or 7 hours. It was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like watch Netflix, play video games. It's like, nah, I should probably read, should probably watch video. And so I'm still very intentional, but I also need to stay consistent, right? Because sometimes I can avoid not writing for a while. Sometimes I can go without reading for a while. But these things are really important to my growth. And so I need to stay at least consistent with them, even if it's a little bit each day. And so I still think the list is really important for me.
Do you believe that everybody should work out their own list, or are there some bits of your list universal?
Absolutely. No, it's just whatever's important for someone. I think meditation and journaling should be on them.
Yeah.
I think those are really important. And journaling, there's a lot of different forms you can do it, but I think it's just important for people to get clear on what's important for them. Maybe it's just like stretching a little bit. Like, I want to feel good, not only now, but later in life. Maybe I don't want to eat processed food every single day. Maybe only 4 days I'll eat processed food. Maybe I want to make sure I'm getting to bed at 10 p.m. rather than be on Instagram. And so it's just like a way to hold yourself accountable, and it's a fun game to play with you, right? It's like win or I lose. I do it or I don't. It's like a great Stoic quote. It's like, do it now or not at all. It's like you have the opportunity right now to do it. Like, stop wasting time saying what a good man is and be one right now.
It's so interesting how your life and pro volleyball career, in terms of the psychology, the psychological aspect, blends in the Western school of thought through Stoicism with the Eastern one, where all the mindfulness based.
Yeah, there's truth everywhere, right? There's truth everywhere. It's not like one country, one religion, one certain group of people, like they're the only ones doing it right. It's like there's a lot of people before that have done it at a really high level. And there's a lot we can learn from those people in this side of the world, in that side of the world, now and in the past. And even one day there's going to be, maybe I have the opportunity to be a father, and I'm probably going to learn a lot from my children as well.
Wonderful. You just show in every minute of this conversation that you're such a student of yourself. But following you on social media, I also know that you're a student of the game. You ask right questions. You love video. Can you tell us a little bit about how to be a good student of the game?
I think it's just to be curious. You know, it's not like this dichotomy of like, I'm good, I'm bad. It's like, I'm learning. If it didn't go well, then there's more to learn. If it went well, let's see what I did well, and let's see how I can continue to reinforce those habits of the technique. Or you see someone else that's like absolutely dominating, and you're like, wow, that person's a lot better than me. What can I learn from them? And so I just really believe in life and in sport, there's just always a better way. And to get to that better way, we must be curious. If we're not curious, we are arrogant. And if we're arrogant, there's no room to grow. It's like the old saying of like the student coming to his teacher with like a glass full and saying like, you know, give me knowledge. And it's like, there's no room. You know, you think you know everything. You need to pour out the cup.
Whoa. I'm just overwhelmed by the way you have figured it out, you know, and you're still active
I'm still
player.
figuring it out. There's still, I still have a lot to learn, but I think I definitely have evolved, you know, from that younger version that was just like very scared and afraid and not confident. You know, I've grown a lot from that version. And it's just like, I'm like an overnight success from like the past 10 years. You know, it's just like learning a little each day, reading a little bit, writing a little bit, failing, being alone. How do I proceed? And it's just like day in and day out, just learning a little bit more.
I'm just wondering if the success here isn't letting yourself evolve.
Yeah, success is great. And, you know, if you are too successful, I think you need to push in some direction that's a little more ambiguous, right? Right now, it's for me in kind of business and trying to grow this NAB brand. And sometimes it's very frustrating. I don't want to do it. It's a lot of work, but that's probably why I should be doing it, because I'm not comfortable. And once you push through that frustration or discomfort, you're learning and you're growing. And I want to be able to provide for myself when I'm done with volleyball, for my girlfriend. There has to be the work done, just like on the volleyball court. You know, it's not that we pick up the ball and we're already there. You know, there's some players like Fornal, and it was just amazing at 18, you know, but not a lot of people are like that. You just have to keep on going, keep on walking that path. And sometimes it's going to be easy, sometimes it's not, but you just have to keep on walking, keep on learning, keep on seeking discomfort.
Can you talk a little bit about the NEB project? Because it's also interesting and might be interesting for some of the listeners.
Yeah, so NEB is short for No Easy Buckets. It's kind of like a joke I had playing in France with one of my teammates. It's more or less a basketball term. It's like if someone has like an easy layup, like you either try and block it or foul them. Like you don't let anything easy. That was just kind of a joke because he was a middle and I was a libero digging him, and just like no easy kills. And it's just kind of, people liked it, and I posted videos and say no easy buckets. And then from there, it's just now more so of like mindset and perception, right? Like we're going to lose games. We're going to get cut. We're going to get benched. Our boyfriend, our girlfriend's going to break up with us, but like no easy buckets. Like we're going to be all right. Like we're going to put in the work. We're going to be relentless. We're going to be gritty. And so that's kind of the goal for me, to create community, create teams, create programs that buy into that mentality where it's like, okay, these things outside of me, they're going to happen sometimes in my favor, sometimes not, but like they're not going to affect like the passion, the clarity, my purpose. And so I slowly started with building some courses for volleyball. I have a free mindfulness course, and just building the tools to help passionate athletes succeed no matter what. And with success, the definition is like, comes from inside, that joy of like, I did everything I needed to do, rather than like, again, this false dichotomy of like, I'm a winner or I'm a loser. And if anything, that's like the goal of it, to push away from that false dichotomy.
You also offer a journal? Is it the kind of journal that you use yourself?
Yeah, so the journal was the first thing that kind of came from the noisy buckets, because I didn't really know what to do, and so I started working. Talking about seeking discomfort, I started working with an old teammate who works as like a personal business coach. So I was just like, I didn't really know. Like, I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't really want to do this. But it was just like, I think I need to start building building a business while I'm still a player, while my words still kind of ring. And so it was like, the first thing was trying to figure out, like, how can I be of value? How can I be of more value to my audience? So I'd wanted to build this journal for a while, and just kind of pushed me to do it. And so journal, something in the morning, something in the evening, in the beginning, sorry, in the morning, just starting the day craving for those things that are already within our life. What am I grateful for? Where is my abundance? And starting already like kind of feeling whole rather than feeling empty and feeling like we need something. And then from there, it's like, what's my purpose for today? Like, what am I going to do on the volleyball court? And then my intention, like, kind of going the Stoic route. What are the 3 things that are completely in my control, right? I can't say I'm going to go to practice and have a good practice. I can't say I'm going to go to the game, have a great game and win. Those things aren't completely in my control. Something that is completely in my control, it's like no processed food, no soda, no caffeine after 2 p.m. I'm going to meditate 3 times a day. I'm going to get to practice early and get extra reps. I'm going to read for 20 minutes. These things are completely in my control. I can make a choice and do these things, or I can make a choice and not do these things. And at the end of the day, just kind of recapping what happened, being honest with ourselves. Like, it's really important to take stock of our wins. And it doesn't even have to be something that's like competitive, right? It can be like, I showed up to practice and I had good energy. I showed up early to practice. I got extra reps. I only looked on my phone for an hour today. So like taking notes, like, you know what, I did some great things today. Because what I realized, especially with the national team, all my energy and all my worth was on volleyball. And if I had a good practice, I felt great. And if I had a bad practice, I felt awful. But with the national team, when I played with them or when I trained with them, I was on the second team. And so it's pretty hard to have a great practice when you're going against Matt Anderson and Micah Christensen. And so I started to feel just a lot better about myself, like taking note of the small wins rather than just like, I played well and I'm happy. I didn't play well, I'm sad, right? But also from there, I think it's important to be honest. And one of the questions is, what was the most challenging moment of the day? And being honest with it. So say volleyball wise, it was like float serves are really difficult, high float serves. I was like, all right, what did I learn from it? I should probably get in the gym and work more on high float serves and see what I can do. And then it's like, what will be my intention tomorrow? It's like, well, I think I need to get in the gym and work on high flow serves. What am I going to do differently tomorrow? I'm going to text the coach and see if I can get in early and work on those. So it's like you go from problem to solution as quickly as possible.
It sounds like a very stoic journal.
Yeah. And I think it's important to disassociate from being like, oh, everything's so positive, everything's so great, it's perfect, woohoo, like I'm manifesting things with my thoughts. It's like, I'm not necessarily along those lines. Like, I am a positive person, but we need to be honest and be like, hey, these things aren't going well. These things are very challenging. I'm not doing a good job in this relationship. I'm not helping the team right now. Being honest with it. And then from there, we can start finding solutions, right? And being creative in finding solutions. Like my girlfriend and I, like, we're only going to have 2 weeks together because I'm going to go to the national team. So it's like, all right, well, when she's asleep or at work, I'm going to do my work. And when she is not asleep, I'm going to be present with her. I'm going to cook for her, give her like foot massages. I'm going to be as present as possible, find solutions rather than focus on the problems. So that's just where I come. Like, problems are going to happen, but like, we have the power to find solutions. How do we find those solutions? I think journaling and meditation help provide the best foundation for space and creativity.
Mm-hmm. What are your plans for the coming months and perhaps next season, if you can talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's just like really, really trying to go all in on my health and my fitness and volleyball, because I just can't imagine playing another year with the national team. This would be it. And so, it's good sometimes to see the impermanence of a situation, because you realize that after this, there is no more. And so if you know that, it's like, well, if it's important to me, I'm probably going to commit and go all in, mentally, emotionally, physically, go all in. And then know that once I'm done, I can be at peace knowing that I will never have this opportunity again. And so that's it. I'm going all in.
Did you attend the Rio Olympics?
No, I was an alternate.
Yeah, I thought so. But you were very close to attending the Rio Olympics. You didn't make the team because the USA team took only one libero.
Yeah, I mean, I was close, but at the same time, I wasn't close. I mean, if the team takes two liberos, then yeah, I would go. But most teams only take one, and so it was pretty clear I wasn't going. I mean, I started with the team 2015, and when I did play, I played pretty well. But Eric was playing at a much better level, and the team won and played with Eric in every tournament, and so it was clear that I wasn't going to go. It's just, I won't say unfortunate because I don't want to subscribe to being a victim, but it's just a clever wrinkle in that for 3.5 years, FIVB says the team can travel 14 players. And then for one tournament, the team can only travel 12 players. And so usually when you go from 14 to 12, it's a middle blocker and a libero. And so that's what happened.
Gotcha. But now you are having a chance to get yourself on the Olympic team to Tokyo.
Yeah, maybe.
Or is that unofficial?
Yeah, I mean, I have a chance. As of right now, I'm like the alternate. So I'll be back with the team, train with them. I'll go to Italy with them. And yeah, I don't know. Eric's the guy. My mission, my goal is to be the best version I can be and support him, assuming he wants that support. Like, I'm fine. Like, if I don't make the Olympics, that's fine. But I'm going to be the best version of myself I can be, right? I'm going to make it as hard as it should be my mission and every other person on the team to make it as hard as possible for the coaches to cut us, right? Because we're of that much value to the team, where they're like, man, this player like does such a great job for us. Like, it's going to be so hard to cut him. But at the same time, it's like, I know my role as of right now. Like, I probably won't play that much, if at all. And that's fine with me. Yeah, I want to support Eric, and be the best teammate I can be. And so maybe I make it. More likely I won't. But I'm gonna go all into being the best teammate, best libero, best Dustin I can be. That's the real plan.
Man, what an attitude! What an attitude! I wish all the athletes were able to adopt this kind of mindset, because one, you are fighting for your spot the best you can, but at the same time you are supporting the teammate you're competing with for that spot. Yeah, this is truly,
sport doesn't define me, because like Stoics talk about, it's like eventually you're gonna die, right? So it's like, what does everything mean? It's like eventually, like, my career is gonna be dead, and I've played with a lot of great players that are really not great people, and you know what, most of their life they're not going to be volleyball players. They're just going to be that shitty person, assuming maybe they grow, right? And so for me, the emphasis is be my best version on and off the court. And knowing that me going or me being selected has nothing to, it's not completely in my control. So I can cling and grasp and seek this spot as much as I want, but at the end of the day, it's not completely in my control. What is in my control is preparing myself, being in great shape, meditating and journaling so my intentions and purpose is clear, being supportive even if it irks me, and just being of value to the team any way I can be. Those things are within my control. And those things will also translate to my life after volleyball, where it's being my best version, being of service, and consistently seeking creative ways to grow.
Wow.
If I get a badge that says Olympian, like, that's pretty freaking cool. Like most people probably get tattooed on my body. Like, it's really cool to be an Olympian. But like, there's like billions of people in the world that aren't Olympians. And so like, I'm going to be fine if I don't make it. Most important thing is my actions leading up to the games, and just if it aligns with the best version of myself possible. That's the most important thing.
Wow. I mean, we are closing in towards the end of this conversation, which was a little bit troublesome on the technical side, but in terms of your message and your wisdom, it's amazing to have a chance to talk to you and delve into the way you think and organize your life internally and externally. Is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners of my podcast with? Is there any kind of thought that you would like to, plant in their minds?
In a funny sense, it's like there's a lot more than people realize that aren't in their control, right? Like decisions and stuff like that. Like, if you're on a team and you get cut, if you're on a team and you don't start, if you are working and you're not like hired, or you don't get the promotion, like these things are outside of your control. And there's a lot of these decisions that are outside of your control, and not to be so hard on yourself. And there's also a lot that I don't think people realize that are in your control, especially how you respond to when things don't go your way. And I think meeting a lot of people throughout the world, the people I respect the most is how they deal with things when they don't go their way. And that's within your control. You don't need to be a great athlete. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to be good looking to respond in a loving, compassionate, and understanding way when things don't go your way. And so, I don't know. It's just find your way, find what's important to you, find creative ways of using your goal as a compass, not necessarily salvation, but as a compass. Like, if I want to be an Olympian at the end of the day, if I'm not Olympian, it's not a big thing, because it's not the end line, right? It's the compass. And so if I want to be an Olympian, it's like, what does an Olympian wake up like? How does an Olympian train? How does an Olympian take care of his body? Does an Olympian like binge drink? Does an Olympian like watch Netflix for 8 hours a day? Probably not, right? Like, so I'm using that as my compass. If you want to be CEO, how does the CEO look like? Do they wake up early? Do they get to the office early? And so use whatever you want in life as a compass, not as a finish line, because more than likely, you're probably not going to reach it. Or if you're pursuing it, there's going to be times where it looks like you're not going to reach it. And that will create your own personal suffering. But if you embody that person, I think you can continue on the route with more clarity, with more equanimity, even when things aren't going the way you'd hope.
Wow. Again, wow, and wow. What a pleasure to hear it out, hear it in person. And I'm hoping that the sound of your voice and the message of yours will reach as many volleyball players here in Poland and anywhere else in the world, because this is only the second episode of my podcasts that I record in English. Perhaps I should do it more often. But still, I feel so grateful for you agreeing to record this podcast after a couple of weeks of bugging you to do that. So grateful and happy at the end of this recording. to capture some of those insights and gems from the world of volleyball, pro volleyball, and not only, because you have touched upon so many other areas of life as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, that's more or less my mission here. It's like, I don't know necessarily how I feel, how I got here, maybe about reincarnation, maybe, but I think that I'm here, whether it was a plan before or now. The plan is just to empower and enrich as many people as I can. So if this can bring value to just one person, then I'm really happy. Because I mean, really, how grateful am I that I can have a positive effect on other people's lives? Like, so grateful. So I appreciate you giving me the platform to possibly part value on other people's journey.
Thank you again, and good luck on your journey, because it ain't finished yet.
Absolutely, it's never finished. Even when I die, I don't think it'll be finished yet.
All right. Thank you for listening to this episode of Mind Rolls Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share the episode with a friend, pass it on your social media stream, and leave a positive review on the platform you're currently using. New episodes are published regularly every 1st and 15th day of each month. Most of the episodes are in Polish, but in the future, I hope to grow the English library of this program. To be up to date with the new episodes of the podcast and the other projects of mine, subscribe to my newsletter and social media via Facebook and Instagram. This is also the best way to get in touch with me personally. I hope to hear back from you. Take good care and enjoy the rest of your day. Ciao!